In this week's Parsha Tzav, we deal with the concept of sacrifices. And we need to try and understand what is the role of sacrifices at all. It seems to be something that is so foreign to us. So Rabbi Jonathan Sachs explains, according to the Sefer HaIkrim, the following idea, that really sacrifices are a means to an end. But why this particular end? So he explains as follows, that after the flood in the time of Noah, God permitted human beings to eat meat. Why initially did he do so? Because neither human beings nor animals had been meat eaters. So what caused Hashem in those times to change his mind? The second, what was wrong with the first act of sacrifice? Cain offered some fruits of the soil, and God rejected that offering, and that led directly to the first murder where Cain killed Hevel. What was at stake in the difference between Cain and Hevel as how to bring a gift to Hashem? The theory is as follows. Killing animals for food is inherently wrong. It involves taking the life of an animal to satisfy our own needs. Cain knew this. He believed there was a strong relationship between man and animals, and that's why he offered not an animal sacrifice but a vegetable one. But he should have brought the highest and not the lowest form of produce. Hevel, by contrast, believed there was a qualitative difference between man and the animals. We know that Hashem had told us, rule over the fish of the sea and the birds of the air and over all the living creatures, as it says in the Sefer Bereshis. And that's why he brought an animal sacrifice. So once Cain saw that Hevel's sacrifice had been accepted while his own was not accepted, he reasoned as follows. If Hashem, who forbade us to kill animals for food, permits and even favors killing an animal as a sacrifice, and if, as Cain believed, there was no ultimate difference between human beings and animals, then why shouldn't I offer the very highest living being as a sacrifice to Hashem, namely my brother? And therefore Cain killed Hevel as a human sacrifice. And that is why Hashem permitted meat eating after the flood, because before the flood the world had been filled with violence, and perhaps violence is an inherent part of human nature. If there were to be a humanity at all, God would have to lower his demands of mankind. Let them kill animals, he said, rather than kill human beings, the one form of life that is not only God's creation, but also Hashem's image. And therefore, the otherwise almost unintelligible sequence of verses after Noah and his family emerge on dry land. So, I think the deeper meaning of this whole concept of eating meat and sacrificing animals comes to replace that inner inherent characteristic of man to want to be violent and to have that violence inside him. And we see in religions of the world where that seems to be the theme of the day. And a person who's really worked on himself, who really wants to become godly, is able to channel and direct that violence. Violence and anger have no part in the refined human being, in the religious prototype which Hashem desired. We have to look at our actions, our tendency to be angry and to express that anger in a violent manner on whatever terms, whether it's swearing, being upset with people. The litmus test of who is a religious person today, in my opinion, based on this idea of the Sefer HaIkrim, is the refinement and the working on ourselves to take that anger and that violence out of our lives. And when we see it take over the entire world today, and the whole world is terrified of, I don't believe a couple of extremists, but basically a whole religion, and it is based in that religion. We see that from the time immemorial, that violence was part of that religion. And we have to take that out of our lives today, that violence and that anger, and become the most refined, respected, dignified human beings that we can possibly become.